And then it struck me, you know what, I'll put a handle on a jacket. So I did. My mom, towards the end of her life, had trouble with mobility. She was in an assisted living facility. Finally, we had to make the decision to do that because her care was around the clock. Having to help her in and out of bed, in and out of chairs, walking down the hall, taking her to doctor's appointments, taking her to lunch, using a walker or a wheelchair in the very end. It was difficult. You know, I was always searching for ways to make it more comfortable for her, make it easier on us, not to hurt ourselves while we were doing it. You know, at one point I remember Mom was sleeping. I was sitting at her bedside just talking to her as she slept, and I said to her, you know, it would be great if somebody, you know, put a handle on a jacket so that it would be easier, so I didn't have to grab your arm when I was walking. And I said, somebody has had to have done that, right? I'm not the first person who has cared for an elderly parent. So I started to look to find a piece of clothing that worked to help with mobility, you know, sitting, standing, walking, and I couldn't find anything. So I said, you know, somebody should really do this. Somebody should put a handle on a jacket. So I went to Walmart and I bought a $12 sweat jacket, and I went to Joann fabric store and bought some strapping. I brought those to a local seamstress and I told her my idea and I showed her where I want the handles, and this little tiny lady in the basement of this place sewing garments, you know, helped me come up with the perfect way to attach these handles to the jacket. You know, we used it and it was good and people saw it and they were asking me where I got it. And I said, I made it. And they said, oh, you make me one? And I was like, no, I'm not in the business of making jackets. And then, you know, as I was probably for about, I don't know, 3 weeks or a month, every time I would go to see my mom and put the jacket on her, somebody without fail would say, that's a great idea. Where'd you get that? Can you make me one? And finally it struck me, maybe I should make these jackets because people need them. There you go. There's the Easeability Jacket. It was a process from there. I'm not a seamstress. I'm not a fashion designer. I've known nothing about clothing. I was in construction my whole life. So I started to investigate manufacturers and fabrics and zippers, and things I knew nothing about except for myself. Like I zipper my own jacket. We found incredible people with great experience. They helped me bring the jacket to the market. It went into production, had this excellent idea, and I had to start figuring out, okay, how do you sell these things, right? Because I had no idea. So Erica, you know, I was talking to you and you said you could do a website, and that was great. Our cousin Tori is in marketing, so I went down that road and found a Eunice who does social media. We now have a team working towards this goal of getting this jacket to people who need it. I was a kid a long time ago, but I was a kid. I wanted to be cool. I have an 18-year-old son. He wants to be cool. And some of this clothing is just uncool. And even for adults, it just looks like a hospital gown or something that was a second thought, right? It wasn't designed for people with disabilities. It was designed for somebody else and then adapted. Went to the Abilities Expo, as you know. That was an amazing experience. We had Easeability Jacket shown at the Abilities Expo in Edison, New Jersey. That was eye-opening because I never, except for my mom, I never worked with anybody, had to care for anybody that had mobility issues and needed a wheelchair to get around or a walker. At the Abilities Expo, everybody was in a wheelchair, and sitting and talking to these people and finding that they needed help dressing and, you know, getting in and out of the wheelchair and with other medical needs. I was in tears. Couldn't believe that out of all the fashion industry, I mean, it's a huge industry, right? Nobody caters to people with these needs, you know, and that's changing now. I found that there are small companies that are in this niche designing clothing for people with disabilities, and I'm one of them, you know. So we took these ideas from lived experience of these people who are wheelchair bound and have other medical needs. They need PICC lines in their chest to get medication. They need a way to get a gastro tube through their clothing. They need dialysis, right? They need access to their arm for dialysis or intravenous. They need an easy way to put it on because you can't get into a jacket or a shirt or a vest in a wheelchair. You can get your arm in, but how do you get the other arm in? Try sitting in a chair and putting both arms in a jacket and getting it down your back. It's hard. And a lot of these people also had, you know, contracted limbs, so their mobility to get their arm through the sleeve is difficult. I didn't know any of this, so it moved me to design stuff for them. Now we're in design and production for some exciting products for them. For me, I was moved to try to help. And my whole life, I was always doing that. I've been in the construction industry as a contractor for many years, my whole adult life. And before that, my parents had a transportation business. So we're always in service. Through my recovery, I helped many people with that process, raising a son by myself as a single dad, being in service to him constantly. So I guess it's my calling to be of service throughout my life, and This seems to be, for me, like the pinnacle of that, right? Something I have no experience with, but I know how to listen, I know how to serve. So I think that feels like such a good fit for me going into my later years of life. That is what I want to do now. I'm excited, I'm honored, I'm blessed to be in this position, to be able to do this. I'm looking forward to the Abilities Expo in Fort Lauderdale in October. We're working on samples now to bring to that expo to meet the needs of these people in wheelchairs, especially the kids. I really want to see their faces when they see something cool that was designed for them instead of being designed for somebody else and then just thrown at them, which I can't even believe that happens, and the fact that it happens, I can't believe how it makes them feel, how they told me it makes them feel. So there we have it. That's where we're at. That's how I got here and where we're at now. I hope to talk to you again soon.